So this is the fourth and last Swiss round. We're both 2-1 record. So whoever wins this game makes into the top cut of 4. This player is also a regular at my local's cardboard games. So I'm pretty familiar with his deck because I played against it a few times. And for anyone who wants to skip this portion, I ultimately sided in 1 Force Choke, 2 Bravado. I sided out the 2 Disabling Fang Fighter, and I believe 1 Grenade Strike. Though there is consideration to keep the Disabling Fang Fighters, because I do know that he runs pilots in the form of Frisk. I don't recall if at the time of this game if I was considering that or not, or if I thought like that was too few pilots for me to run Disabling Fang Fighters. So they went to space, so I decided to lane dodge to ground. TIE Bomber is also really weak if they have a space start, so. I was pretty happy with this exchange because it just kind of moved the game state forward, and that generally benefits me because my deck is a bit slower. In hindsight, that's actually a misplay probably. My hand is relatively weak. I only have the only playable cards I have would be the Salacious Crumb and the Droid Missile Platform. So if my opponent had played Kira instead, and just called out Droid Missile Platform, it basically shuts down my whole turn because I'd only be able to play the Salacious Crumb. So I drew a Maul and a Colonel Yularen, and I resourced the Yularen. Yeah, so we talked about this playline in the post-match discussion. I told him that I was like super surprised at how he was able to clear my MC30. So that denies my Boba leader pilot flip as a first action. In the post-match discussion, he mentioned how something like he was like intent on just holding Disabling Fang Fighter for my leader, until he realized that he can make this play and just kill my MC30. So I have no vehicles in hand, so my Boba leader can only go to the ground this turn, which is kind of sad. So here, I think I was basically just contemplating if I should do the daring raid on the K2SO, get my Boba trigger, and then after I deploy to the ground, I can still do bravado, or just hold on to that daring raid. Ultimately, I do play bravado here. I was just deciding on if the sequence of the attacks mattered, and if I wanted to put both of the attacks into the base, or split it across the base and Fennec. Yeah, I typically put my unit upside down if it was like a no good to me dead. But that's not a no good to me dead. So anyways, they currently have 12 damage on board. So that means they're 2 off lethal. And then they have 2 cards in hand. So I was like super worried, like, okay, what if they have like double surprise strike, right? That's like the worst case scenario. So I was trying to play around that, or like keep that in mind. Because I currently have a overwhelmed barrage, which I could play to remove damage, or yeah, or play my mole. And I was just trying to decide like between like those play lines. So talking through the play lines, I could OB on my Boba, which allows me to allocate 6 damage, and that can kill Fennec and the K2SO, and then put 1 damage on one of the other 2 units, which doesn't really matter at this point. So that would prevent 8 damage on board. K2SO's when defeated will deal 3, so I ultimately would prevent 5 damage. If I did the Maul, so one thing about Maul is that it has the on attack, which I didn't realize until later on of my turn here. So when I was initially considering Maul, I was considering to ambush into Fennec, do the overwhelm damage, but I was afraid that if my opponent had like a surprise strike or any pump on K2SO, it will deal its overwhelm damage on my damaged Maul and trigger its when defeated. So I initially thought that Maul was probably not the right play, or potentially not the right play, because I forgot that you can allocate the combat damage on Maul to another friendly underworld unit, which I do have, and that's what I ultimately did. So this also allows me to set up lethal for the following turn, because if I did Overwhelm Barrage on Boba Fett this turn instead, I wouldn't set up lethal for the following turn, at least not with like 1 action. So at this point, my opponent has 8 damage on board, which would put me at 27, which is 6 damage off. So they basically have to have double surprise strike or they don't have lethal this turn. So after seeing them spend 3 resources to play Falcon to deal 3, at this point, there's pretty much, I don't think there's anything they could do for lethal. So in the post-match discussion, one of the things I brought up was if they had considered killing my Colonel Yularen with their Ahsoka early game. But we later, I guess, recalled, and then it would have actually been a wash because I've only triggered Yularen a total of 3 times after their Ahsoka had an opportunity to kill it. So even if they did use their Ahsoka to kill it, it's just a wash. Yep, so that's game. So stay tuned for the Top Cut games.